My name is Ryan Whelan. I'm a pastor at New Crossing Church in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin, and this is a commentary-style video on the book of Ruth. We're in our second video. We're looking at Ruth 1, 15 through 22, and this is meant to accompany our sermon series at our church that we're going through the book of Ruth. So that's enough dilly-dally. Let's grab our Bibles and jump right in. So here we are in Ruth 1:15, and we see, and she said, meaning Naomi, see, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return after your sister-in-law. Naomi is giving Ruth one last out, showing her like that she really wants her to go back. She's really going to allow it. She's not going to be offended. Go back to your people. Go back to your gods. Go back to your identity. Go back to your former life. And the word return is mentioned here again. We've seen that a few times. Shuv is kind of the Hebrew, and it does mean return, to turn back, to go back. And we're going to see this show up a few times, and it'll be a little bit more meaningful in 1:16 because Ruth says, don't tell me to return anymore. And now the question is, will Ruth return with Orpah, or will Ruth return with Naomi? Who's she going to identify with? We see in Ruth 1:16 her great pledge to Naomi. And this follows a lot of covenant language. It's really similar to a marriage covenant, a marriage pledge or wedding vows. And we're going to see that in 1:16. So Ruth said, do not urge me to leave you or to return from following you. So she's saying, I don't want to leave. I don't want to turn back. Don't urge me. Don't tell me that you want me to go, because I'm not going to. The word pagah here is used, and it is a very forceful entreaty. It's saying like, I'm strongly urging you. And that's kind of what Naomi is doing to Ruth here. She's strongly urging Ruth, go back. And Ruth says, no, this is not what I want. And this is the first time Ruth speaks at length. And when she does, she uses covenant language. She refuses to return to Moab in every sense of the word. And she continues on. And this is sort of where the wedding vow part starts, as she says, where you go, I'm going to go. Where you're lodging, I'm going to lodge. I'm going to live where you live. Ruth isn't committing to this sort of dramatic moment. She's saying, listen, everything about you, where you go, I'm going to go. Where you lodge, I'm going to lodge. And everything about who you are, your people are going to be my people. Your God, my God. And this is a really, really important idea here. Naomi, or Ruth, clung to Naomi. We saw that in verse 14. And we see this wedding vow language actually pop up in Genesis 2:24, where a man shall cling to his wife. And so there's this clinging to Naomi as if they are married. And so 16 ends with a very powerful statement of covenant language. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. This is echoing Exodus 6:7. I will be your God, and you will be my people. This is a Moabite woman, Ruth, and she's speaking Israel's covenant language. And what's more is she says, where you die, I will die, and there I'm going to be buried. And so burial and death mattered a lot in Old Testament times. Where you're buried is tied to inheritance, family identity, and where you belong. Ruth is giving up and surrendering her entire identity, her old identity, and taking a new identity. And she says that that identity is in Yahweh, or the Lord. Now, this is an interesting name of God. It's called a tetragrammaton, really fun word to say. And it means Lord. That's how we translate it, but really it's an untranslatable, unpronounceable name of God. Yahweh is usually what we say, but it's supposed to be unpronounceable. So the Lord do so, that's his formal name. The Lord do so to me, and if anything but death parts me from you. So she's saying, listen, this is a formal oath common in the Old Testament. It's an Israelite oath as well. Ruth says his name, and then in sum, Ruth is speaking like an Israelite. She binds herself to Naomi by divine oaths. Her loyalty to Naomi is an expression of covenant faith towards Israel, towards Yahweh, towards Naomi, and she's speaking in terms of covenant as strong as a marriage. She is saying, listen, I am no longer Ruth the Moabite. I am Ruth the God-fearer. God is my God now. Your God, Yahweh, is now my God, and your people are now my people. That's a big deal. And then there's this pause verse. In verse 18, we see a little bit of a break in the action, and it's sort of like an exhale. And when Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more. The word determined here is ametz, and it just means really, really determined. There's no way getting around it. So Naomi recognizes that Ruth's decision is final. This verse pauses. You get to exhale because there's been all this drama and all this really emotional, heightened action going on. Who's going to go where? What's going to happen? Who's going to go with who? And now it's like, now we know where the story is headed. And where does this story lead? Well, it leads to Bethlehem. The two of them went on their way until they came to Bethlehem. We talked about this meaning in a previous video, but it's Beit Lehem, or house of bread. And when they came to Beit Lehem, the whole town was stirred. This idea of stirred is like there's a commotion, there's a buzz, something's going on, because Naomi returned, yes, and she returned without her husband or her sons. And in place of her husband and two sons is a Moabite woman. Remember, Moabites and Israelites don't get along. Usually there's this history of racism and war and a lot of tension between those two people groups. And now Naomi has returned with this Moabite woman, Ruth. And the women said, women said, is this Naomi? Calling her by her name. And this is an interesting idea here. She said to them, do not call me Naomi, call me Mara. So this is an interesting play on words. Say Naomi's name means pleasant. Naomi means pleasant or beautiful. And this word right here, Mara, means bitter. So Naomi is renaming herself and saying, no, my name is not pleasant. My name is bitter. For the Almighty. Now, this is a cool name. Check this out. So the Almighty, capitalized, meaning it's one of God's names. The Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. This name Almighty is Shaddai, or you've probably heard that El Shaddai. He is the Almighty, the ruler of everything. And when you couple that with Elimelech, meaning God is sovereign. So Naomi was married to Elimelech, and his name means God is sovereign. When you couple that with this idea of almighty, all-powerful, all-sufficient God, Naomi isn't blaming chance. She's saying, listen, God is in control. He's the one who's done this. She attributes her suffering to the sovereign hand of God, for better and for worse, I think. So then she explains why she wants to be renamed in verse 21. We see she says, I went away full and I was brought back empty. Now there's irony here because, of course, Naomi isn't empty. Naomi has Ruth with her, but she certainly doesn't have her husband or her two sons with her, which is devastating. And so she says, why are you calling me Naomi? For the Lord has testified against me, and the Almighty has brought calamity on me. Again, the two names of God showing up here, Yahweh and Shaddai showing up here. He's brought calamity, danger, death has been brought to me in the country of Moab. And then finally, we end our text today in verse 22 with a little bit of hope. And I love this, right? So Ruth ends this chapter. Chapter 1 ends with some hope. Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabite with her. Again, stressing that she's a Moabite. She doesn't belong here. Her daughter-in-law with her, who returned from the country of Moab, again, stressing they were in Moab. Ruth is from Moab, and they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. Interesting that the famine was done. The Lord visited Judah and Bethlehem and ended the famine, and now they're returning back. They came back to Bethlehem at the beginning of the harvest. And this is the first glimpse of hope in God's provision. Right at the end, the last word, the barley harvest, Ruth 1 ends with hope that we're going to get into when we start chapter 2. All right, till next time, take it easy. I hope that you're continuing to dive into Ruth and getting excited about all the nuances and cool things going on in this book. It's super rich in cultural background and word meaning, and it's a really, really exciting book to study. If you want to figure out how to go deeper on your own, I have a pretty cool tutorial right here on Blue Letter Bible. And if you want to check out the previous video on Ruth 1 through 14, you can check out this video here. Until next time, adios and God bless.